Welcome to our tour of the new Sectigo Certificate Manager 21.11 UI. In this release, we have re-architected the SCM UI to use material design and to improve the navigation and layout to easier find functionality. The navigation is now moved to the left, and we have the following options. Certificates is largely unchanged from previous releases. SSL certificates, code signing, and devices would still show the same certificate table. Client certificates in previous releases actually showed a person view. It is now showing a client certificates view. We now have a separate entry available to see the old person's view. Discovery itself has not actually changed very much. We have moved assignment rules up from the settings area directly into Discovery to make it easier to access. Domains and organizations have now moved to the top level for quick access. Reports largely unchanged with this a slightly new UI. We now have an enrollment section that contains certificate profiles previously in settings, along with a breakout of the various enrollment endpoints. So Acme, SCEP, EST are all available directly as individual entries with the same functionality as previous releases. A new issuer section is available that shows the various CA backends that may be available, along with the private CAs list from previous releases. Code signing on demand is largely unchanged. We now have an integration section that shows a page for the various agents and any outbound connections such as Azure or Intune. The settings area from previous releases has been simplified. Most options have been moved to a better location, and we have moved admins into the settings from the top level of the navigation. About is largely unchanged. The certificate tables have been maximized to use the full screen and reduce vertical space above the table, previously used by navigation and filtering. Table controls such as filtering, refresh, download or export to a CSV, and column selections are always available on the right side. Above those controls are such things as add or import. In the case of an SSL certificate, the add button will bring up the request SSL Certificate Wizard. This is largely unchanged from previous releases, though the order of some steps has changed. We now collect the details before we collect the CSR, since owners and certificate profiles may control the allowed key types inside the CSR. Filtering works pretty straightforward. We can filter on a variety of fields. I'm going to filter on issued certificates only. As we can see here, we have a variety of certificates. Picking this one here, we'll take a look at the new certificate viewer. The SSL Certificate Viewer is the same as all other certificate types now, with only minor differences based on certificate type. It will always show the common name first, followed by a number of badges, one that shows the ID of the certificate, the issued or current status, and whether or not the certificate is scheduled for auto renewal. Below that will be a message providing information about this certificate. So in this case, an issued certificate, we will show the expiry in days. If the certificate is in the requested state, it will show information about approvals and so on. On the right side will be download options for the certificate and quick access to operations related to the certificate. The main part of the dialog consists of up to 4 tabs. The details, management, chain of trust, and the time span. Details shows information such as the owner, information about the order if the certificate was placed through Sectigo. Discovered certificates obviously would not have order information, any comments, and some quick summary about the certificate itself. The management tab contains all sections related to management of the certificate. This may change based on certificate type. Notifications can be turned on and off. This certificate here is not scheduled for auto installation, but it is scheduled for auto renewal. If we have found this certificate during a discovery operation, information about those locations would be visible here. If Sectigo is managing the private key, either in the private key agent or Sectigo key vault, information would show here. And for SSL certificates, the self-enrollment passphrase is available at this point. The chain of trust shows the certificate, its issuer, and all certificates in the path to a root certificate. You can select any certificate in the chain. There's quick access to copy it in PEM format to the clipboard or to download it to a file. For each certificate, you can see all fields, all extensions, and properties such as hashes of the certificate. The time span view shows the various dates important to the life cycle of this certificate. When it was requested, issued, in this case, since auto renewal is scheduled, when an auto renewal will occur, and the expiry. For certificates that are found for discovery, some of this data, such as requested, would obviously not be available. Client certificates is a new view in 21.11. It fundamentally is just a raw view of certificates. Code signing and device certificates are largely unchanged. In 21.11, there is a brand new view for your domains. Domains are now viewed in a tree as opposed to using 2 pages, one for delegation of the domain and one for DCV. As you can see here, on the right side, we have 2 cards. One card controls the domain itself, in this case, star.ccmqa.com, information about that domain and control of delegation. Below that is a card dealing with DCV. In this case here, DCV, you can see, has inherited from the parent domain, as opposed to being applied directly to that domain itself. Here's an example of a public IP that has not been validated. An example of a private domain that cannot be validated either. Organizations fundamentally are the same. The view dialog for organizations has changed quite a bit. The details about an organization are available using the edit organization details sub-dialog. These details rarely change, so they're not directly accessible in the dialog. Any EV details if EVRA mode is enabled. All the various certificate settings, which were previously on separate tabs, are now available on a single tab with a section for each certificate type. Email templates have largely unchanged from previous release. As mentioned previously, client certificates view is now known as persons. Individual persons and their certificates are available here. Reports are fundamentally the same. The UI is slightly enhanced. It does allow a more direct access to dates and more control over organizations or departments to include within the report. The new CA backend view allows viewing of all the backends configured. In this case here, I have a Sectigo public CA backend and access to two of the Sectigo private CA backends. The customer client editor, client admin editor, is also being improved in this release. If you're familiar with the previous UI, it had 3 vertical panes for each area of a admin. The first pane would have been information about the admin, now available under the details. The first tab on the main dialog deals with the roles and privileges. So in this case, you can see this admin is a morale admin. If you switch to a RAW admin, you must select the variety of certificate types they have access to and which organizations those apply to. The second tab deals with authentication for the admin, shows when the admin's last password is last changed, the client certificates that may be enabled for client auth, and any SAML IDPs being used.